Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Faithful Dogs podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by Zach DeFranco, Jack Robinson. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
Doing good. Minus
Doing
the air
good.
quality.
Oh God, that's not good. Um, wow. But no, I'm doing good. Doing good. That kind of caught me off guard a little bit, Jack. Good job. Good job with that one.
That's my job. That's my job.
Oh, man. Well, guys, before we get into tonight's episode, just a reminder, drop a like on tonight's live stream to help that YouTube algorithm grow for Network 216. Be sure to subscribe if you're brand new to Network 216, providing you guys with daily Ohio sports content year-round. Also, we do have a brand new Discord. It is in the description to join that. There are two options that you can do. So just some of the content that's involved in the Discord is there are going to be just conversations on your favorite teams. So Browns, Cavs, Buckeyes, you name it, Guardians. We pretty much have it for you guys. That's general chat. We're also going to have spaces, of course, that will be the $10 a month option, which will include sports rumors. So like today, we dropped an Ohio State recruiting update about an hour ago. We've dropped a lot of those, but we're going to provide rumors on
a lot of Ohio State rumors and content have been in there. Cavs. I think we had like a few Browns ones so far, but you know, as soon as Brown season picks up, like it's gonna get crazy in there. So
yeah, exactly. Like it's definitely going to pick up for sure. And we also have some great sports betting content. We're consistently winning in the Discord. That's what we like to say. It is $10 per month. We do have an annual option as well. We're going to be providing a discount on that. So that's something to just keep an eye out for the next couple of days here as we get that set up. But we would love to have you guys as part of the Discord again. So even if you just want to join for free and kind of see what we're all about in the Discord, feel free to do that. And we really appreciate that support. So, guys, tonight's going to be another kind of a fun show. So last week, Jack, you were with me. We went to a Browns alternate universe. That was pretty fun, I have to admit. But tonight, we're going to do a Browns rewind to the 2022 offseason. Now, this isn't alternate universe. What we just want to go over is just kind of recap the Browns' moves from last offseason and really come to the end of the show, determine, did Andrew Berry do enough to really put talent in place for this team to succeed and be a playoff team in 2022, given Deshaun Watson's suspension and everything else that occurred? So, before we get started, guys, anyone in the chat, feel free, obviously, to ask us any questions you guys have, any comments, feel free to put those in there, and we'll get to as many as we can. All right, guys. So the first move that really took place here, I would say, let's just start with one of the big moves. That was the Browns trading for Amari Cooper. I think we can all agree that move is one of the best Andrew Berry has ever done. I mean, when you can get a talent like Amari Cooper and basically give up nothing, I would say that's a home run. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Oh yeah, I mean that was like the big move, especially when that was like our biggest concern was like we need a wide receiver who's consistent. Obviously, Jarvis Landry had a bunch of injury issues throughout the season. I think DBJ even had some injury issues, and obviously you give up OBJ during that season. So that was like such a big get, and to get him for a 5th round pick. Considering just like what then happened to the wide receiver market, like subsequently after that, I mean, it was a steal.
yeah. I think right after that wasn't Christian Kirk's deal signed or something like that, and so out of nowhere too, we didn't even know what we were doing necessarily yet at quarterback. We were like, okay, I think there was the report that Baker was the first person to like text Amari and saying he couldn't wait to get to work with them or something like that.
Yeah,
like that's what kind of like kind of the whirlwind that off just to get started. How much of a whirlwind that last offseason was as a Browns fans and the overhaul that it was.
Yeah, so that's really just start with Amari Cooper. I think that's kind of a basic one as far as obviously really successful for Andrew Berry there. Now the next one to go to, the Browns bring in Jakeem Grant. They gave Jakeem Grant at the time it was a 3-year contract for $10 million, averaging $3.3 million a year. I would say, unfortunately, that has turned out to be one of the bad deals from last offseason because unfortunately he's probably going to get cut now. What are your guys' thoughts on, now that you look back on adding Jakeem Grant?
Well, I mean, the thing about Jakeem Grant is he would have been, in my opinion, he could have been like a Pro Bowl returner for us if that injury never happened. So if you look back at it from a 22 perspective, solid move. But then this year, I mean, now you get a full year of Deshaun and another overhauled wide receiver room. And I mean, really, if you look at it, there really isn't, other than a returner role for him on the offense. I mean, you got, Goodwin now and everything like that. Like it's just really not really room for him. And returning in the NFL now really isn't anything special either. It's going to be a bunch of just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fair catching and stuff, dude.
I mean,
it's about protecting the players now, so it's really not a need for him on the roster as a wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean that's a big one that kind of really does negate his effectiveness on the team. Is that, well, obviously he's older, he's coming off a torn ACL, and that season I think a lot of us thought that because we were all just talking about how the offense is going to be kind of sluggish. It's not really going to be very, very good for the first couple of weeks of the season. And we were like, well, we need good returns, we need good defense, we need good field position. So Jakeem Grant was going to be one of those guys that I think a lot of us thought, if he can break off a couple of nice runs, he's a well established player at the return position. If he can get us some good field position, make it so that's easier for our offense to operate. I think that he was one of those guys that I think a lot of us had a lot of hope in. Kind of like, we were looking at guys like Josh Cribbs, really helped the offense out by giving them a good place to start. And obviously during training camp when he got hurt, I think a lot of us were like, that is so bad, just because obviously, again, his age and ACLs for a guy, your speed never really goes back to full strength. So it did kind of make it seem like at that point he wasn't really going to be a long-term answer for the Browns. He wasn't going to be a long-term member at that position. So yeah, I mean, I think at this point it was an unfortunate series of events, but at the same time it did kind of show that the depth at wide receiver position needed to be extended, and obviously now that issue has been amended, and now Jakeem kind of just doesn't have a place on the team.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest unfortunate thing is he got injured, and if he doesn't get injured, probably that deal looks a lot better on paper.
Yeah.
I think when you're looking at it, because again, if you're rewinding back to it and you look at it now, it's like, oh man, that really unfortunately turned out just not to work out for the Browns.
And it probably would have worked out really well.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because you needed a guy like that in the return game anyway.
Yeah.
So now, here's another controversial one. Clowney. The Browns brought back the defensive end on a 1-year deal for about $10 million. Now, again, keep in mind, I don't have the exact figure. I mean, I'm going back to 2022. I don't have the exact figures of each contract. This is kind of just an estimate on what each deal looked like. So the Browns brought back Jadeveon Clowney, waited all offseason pretty much to bring him back. I think looking back, bringing him back for a second year, we were all really pumped about. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't a fit. Jadeveon Clowney just didn't want to be here anymore. How do you guys look back on bringing back Jadeveon Clowney for one more year?
I don't know. But fans were hyped about it.
Fans
were hyped about it. But once you go through the season, this is all like, you're looking back at it now. So like in hindsight, yeah, terrible move. He obviously wasn't happy here. He obviously wasn't happy with the defense. But a lot of players weren't happy with the defense, but he wasn't even happy that, the defense was built around Miles. He wasn't happy about it. And Miles is like a generational talent at his position. Like, you should be happy you played next to Miles, dude. So, yeah, I mean, as a locker room perspective, terrible. At the end of the season, when he came out and talked. So, yeah, MC, I guess you're right. I can't speak for everyone, but I know majority of the people that we talked to were happy about Clowney coming back for another year.
And I mean, I think the thing is that we saw how good Clowney did last year. I mean, or the year before. I mean, he had like 8 sacks or something. Like, he was very effective, very efficient, and we knew that defensive tackle was going to be a position of need. I mean, obviously we were looking to the draft to maybe remedy that, but we all thought, well, if they don't take a guy in the draft, they probably have a good feeling on getting back Jadeveon, and obviously they did. And I think that we all thought that he was going to continue that sort of trajectory that he was on with Miles. I mean, he had an incredible year, a really good bounce back year. And just the fact that, we hear about all the drama in the locker room and his issue with Joe Woods and the way that, he would take himself out of plays and just not go back in. I mean, I don't think anyone expected that, just based off of the way that he talked about the team and the way that he performed last year or the year before. But yeah, I mean, it obviously, like, in hindsight, it was a terrible move, but at the time it seemed like a no-brainer to bring back a guy who had done so much and was, I mean, another 1-year deal. It doesn't, hamstring you that badly. So I mean, on the surface, it was a no-brainer, but obviously it never turned out the way we wanted just because of Clowney's ego. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's really unfortunate it didn't work out, but I mean, this is fair there, because this is not the first time that people have said that about Clowney, even before he came to Cleveland, that's just the type of player he was. I mean, we saw it, unfortunately, that second year. He was a talent, man. He really was. He played well, especially that first year he was here in Cleveland. Unfortunately, after that, he didn't like being in Myles Garrett's shadow. So it's really unfortunate that didn't work out, for sure. So the next one to move to, because we'll get to the quarterbacks we're going to say for the end, obviously, because they're the ones to talk about the most. But next up is defensive tackle Taven Bryan, who the Browns brought in on a 1-year, $4 million deal. He was only 26 years old at the time. $4 million. The defensive tackle room was terrible. Taven Bryan was your best defensive tackle and second in sacks with 4. So even though the defensive tackle room was as bad as it was, the fact you got Taven Bryan, a former first-round pick, for $4 million, he did about what you could ask him to do. So I look at that as, when you look back on that signing, to me, I think that's solid. It didn't move the needle much. It was just a solid signing.
Well, yeah, I think it was a solid signing when you consider that our defensive tackle position was a bunch of guys. I think that a lot of the fact that the signing worked out was just the fact that he got a lot of time, because no one else in our defensive tackle room could really be consistent enough to be a starter. So, I mean, obviously, yeah, he produced and he was really good. So you have to say that, Andrew Berry made a good move in bringing that guy in. Obviously, he hasn't been panning out elsewhere in the league. So yeah, that was a good move. Obviously, it was obvious that we needed help there. So being able to get a guy who was able to come in and produce, it's sad that the number 2 guy on our team for sacks only had 4 sacks on the season, but you got to take the wins where you can. So I mean, it worked out. He was a good rotational player there at defensive tackle. So I mean, you got to give him Andrew Berry props for finding him.
Yeah, I mean, it was just disappointing production, but the entire defensive line, especially interior defensive line, which is why we did what we did this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, Andrew Berry loves his former first-round picks, and he went after one. So you can't be mad. You can't be mad about it then,
Yeah, absolutely. The next player is another guy the Browns decided to bring back. Kind of surprised all of us, I would say, just because we believed that he was going to be priced out of what the Browns were willing to pay. But safety Ronnie Harrison was brought back. Again, 25 years old. He was brought back on a $1.2 million contract. He never became the player that some of us thought he could become here. It just never really seemed to be a good fit for him. I mean, every now and then he had a moment, but the thing I think we'll remember him the most for is just getting ejected.
Yeah.
And getting personal foul calls.
He always would do something that was like, dude, why would you do that? Like, at the worst times too, like late hits out of bounds.
Against the Chiefs, the Chiefs in that first game was like the fact that even happened. Obviously, the coach was in the wrong too, for pushing Ronnie Harrison. But I mean, the fact that he pushed him back in a game like that, where the momentum was like,
that's
really
how
important.
I remember that.
Like it's super. It was a super big play because it was like super close. It was like almost like it was still in the first half, I think. And that was just like a huge thing that just completely changed the momentum of the game. So, I mean, you just can't do that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to blame that. I'm not going to say that he was a bad player at all for us. But I honestly, at the same time, the entire defense was bad. Like,
yeah, but I mean, there's a difference between being bad in production and just being undisciplined and doing stupid crap to hurt your team, which he seemed to do time and time again whenever he had the opportunity to. So there's one thing to hand the ball to former head coach. That's funny. All right.
Yeah,
there's one thing to do that. It's another it's another thing to put your team in bad situations with personal fouls. Yeah. So that was funny though, Tyler. You're right. That was a great game. That was a great game as a Browns fan.
I think Tyler's frozen.
Yeah, Tyler's Wi-Fi. Let's just say
he has a decent amount of Y. He doesn't have any Fi left, dude. He needs to go to the store and pick some up. Okay, he's back.
All right, Tyler. If you need me to, I can send you some hotspot, bro. I got you on some hotspot. Oh my gosh, this dude.
Well, I'll go ahead and I'll start the next segment because I mean I think one of the big trades that actually happened was the Browns ended up sending Mack Wilson to the Patriots for defensive end Chase Winovich. And I think, Zach, I remember when this happened and we all thought it was really funny because you have Mack Wilson who, we just don't know if he's committed. We don't know how talented he really is. Cause we know that athletically he's got the tools, but then he's just so unserious with the way he posts his workout pictures and they're all edited. He's
photoshopped.
Yeah, they're photoshopped and the you can see the grate on the wall behind him is melding around his biceps. And so, you trade him and you get a guy like Chase Winovich. And I think a lot of people had high hopes for Chase Winovich, obviously because he was a defensive end, and you thought, oh, this guy could come in, be a good rotational player with Jadeveon, and obviously you need more help at the defensive end position, and I think he could also be used as a linebacker. So I think we thought that he could be kind of used in a lot of different roles. But what did you think about Chase Winovich, and what do you think? How do you feel like he played out?
I don't know, dude. I had no expectations for that trade. Literally,
dude, it was
a one for one.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who thought that he was going to be crazy, and I'm not going to lie. I thought, Chase Winovich, why not? And he comes in, he says he lets the fans vote for his number.
And he picked
69.
Yeah.
It was a cool thing, but I think the reality is that he was a guy that the Patriots really didn't care about and they didn't want anymore. And Mack Wilson was a guy that we didn't really care about anymore either. So we were just kind of getting rid of guys and hoping that they worked out. Now, I don't know. Did Mack Wilson end up working out in New England? I mean, I think he was okay in a couple of games, but
I think he was a special teams player there too.
Yeah. And I mean, Chase just didn't do anything.
Preseason All-Star.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is Chase could have been better in a better scheme, but I mean, I don't think he ever made a play where you're like, wow, Chase Winovich, that was a great play by him. I don't think he ever did anything that I can recall. I don't think I ever remember him doing anything of note.
I'm trying to think. Oh, hey, Tyler. We're talking about Chase Winovich. We're talking about Chase Winovich now.
Okay. I mean, dude,
yeah,
the Chase Winovich.
Think of anything? Any big things that you remember about Chase Winovich of him actually doing?
He wore the number 69.
Yeah, we talked about that one.
First thing we covered, Tyler.
Dude, that's for real. That's for real, man. Now I'll say this: when you trade, when you do a player for player trade with two guys that are very much underachievers in Mack Wilson and Chase Winovich, it is whatever it is what it is. I mean, at the same time, you almost wonder if we could have used Mack Wilson more just for special teams purposes, because Chase Winovich didn't give us anything, and even if half the time, even if he was healthy at the time, he still wouldn't actually be active on game days.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, MC Lawrence, my Wi-Fi is, this is pretty much accurate. I'm at my parents' house recording because at the place I'm currently living, we are getting that installed in 2 weeks. So we're doing what we can here, man. I might have to hop on my phone even at this point, but
Now it looks way
That-
better right now. It looks way better right now.
The dedication, though, the dedication is what is most important. So I'm glad you guys brought up Chase Winovich. I mean, just one of those. It was a low risk move at that point, so it kind of is what it is with him. So now, guys, here are the juicy ones. Well, before we get to the quarterbacks, the Browns signed center Ethan Posich. At this time, he was only 26. They gave him $1.1 million for 1 year. I mean,
that was
Andrew Berry found a
steal of
gem.
a steal.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously, you know, you have a guy like Bill Callahan who like just knows how to you know, train up these centers, and you know, I think a lot of us just didn't know what to expect from him because we were just hoping that we would finally have a season where we wouldn't have to worry on our backup center being the starter, because it seemed like every year that seemed to happen every single time, whether it be Wyatt or whether it be or not. No, oh my gosh, JC. I meant JC, not Wyatt. JC Treader, or why am I blanking? Who was our starter last year before he got hurt in the first play of the preseason? Nick Harris.
Nick Harris.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and then you know because we were all thinking, yeah, Nick Harris is a starter, and you know he's finally going to get a chance because I mean he just keeps racking up injuries, and then Ethan Poches comes in, and I mean this guy just looks totally professional, totally calm. I mean, he was the highest rated center for like the first 4 weeks of the season or something. Like the guy was just fantastic. So the fact that you were able to get him for basically nothing, find this guy, get him in there, get him trained up, and that he was able to be so proficient, I mean, that's just an absolute win. I mean, he's already been extended, so you already know that he's going to be the guy for the next couple of years at least. So I think that that's a bona fide win for Andrew Berry. I mean, just a fantastic move.
100%. There's when you can sign a guy like that, and then when you the opportunity to be able to re-sign him, and then you get him when you re-sign him that cheap.
Yeah,
it's a steal. It really is a steal. I mean, and you have him, like you said, Jack, for at least the next 2 years, because at that point, good chance they move on. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you do have your guy, and that's really good. So now the big two, we're gonna start off with Jacoby Brissett. So the Browns brought in Jacoby Brissett last year. After we traded for Deshaun Watson, they gave him $4.6 million for 1 year. I would say we got more out of Jacoby Brissett than any of us thought. Truly. I mean, he had a career season. So looking back on this deal, are you guys glad we went for Jacoby Brissett if you knew Deshaun Watson was going to for sure? Because at the time, we thought he was going to miss 4 to 6 games. But so would you still have gone for Jacoby Brissett? Would you have maybe gone for another higher level backup potentially? How do you guys now feel about the Jacoby Brissett deal a year later?
Well, I think when we got Jacoby, we all thought, okay, he's going to be. We knew he was going to start a couple of games. Like obviously, we were hoping that maybe it would be only 4 to 6. Obviously, it became 11, and I think when we were looking at it, we were thinking, okay, Jacoby, he's not very mobile, but maybe they can kind of have some overlap with the playbook because of just the fact that he's not a super athletic quarterback, but he is very consistent, and obviously you would rather have Deshaun running around, but obviously coming off of this long suspension, it would be easier for him to just kind of be a pocket passer. And for the most part, we just needed someone who was consistent. And Jacoby, although he does have his ups and downs, he is a very consistent quarterback. In that what you're getting with him. And so I think that for the most part, I think that if we go just based off guys who were on the market as a backup quarterback, at least at the time that we got Jacoby, I don't think that Mitch Trubisky was available. I don't think Marcus Mariota were still available. So for the most part, I think that Jacoby was really the best option. And obviously afterwards, I think everyone would say that, he was the guy that probably worked out the best out of all the guys who were available. I mean, he I think everyone in Cleveland would say that, Jacoby, he's a lifelong Cleveland Brown. No, everyone's gonna respect and love that guy for what he did this season. So, I mean, he came in, he did his job. He didn't, make any sort of he didn't make any sort of drama about, Deshaun coming back. He knew what his job was. He knew what the assignment was, and he executed it to perfection. I mean, he did everything he was supposed to do. I know, yeah, he did have some mistakes, the Atlanta game, and some of his passes were kind of suspect. As you got further on, some of the cracks showed, but you didn't really expect a lot out of him. And I think a lot of us even were saying, like, yeah, the defense is going to have to carry us. But I mean, he was leading one of the top offenses in the league for like the first six. For the first like 6 games. He was fantastic, and he did everything he wanted to do.
During his entire like basically tenure with the Browns, we were top 10 in scoring during all of his starts. He made questionable plays late when he had to make the game-winning drive, but half of those drives he shouldn't have even had to been making in the first place.
Yeah.
Like that Jets game, Chargers game. Like there's some of those games, like, I don't know, man. We should have already had it in the bag. He already did enough to win the game as the quarterback that we needed him to be that year.
Look, that throw, fourth quarter, 4th and 10 at like the 15-yard line against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers to send us to overtime to David Njoku in the back of the end zone. I mean, that's just an incredible throw. I mean, the guy can still do it. Like, obviously, yeah, he's not elite. He's not crazy. He's not athletic. But, I mean, you need a yard. He can sneak it for 5. I mean, we saw it in the Steelers game. That guy has heart. That guy plays like you want a Cleveland Brown to play like.
Yeah. I think looking back on Jacoby Brissett, kind of like you said, Jack, Mariota was gone. Trubisky was actually, I believe, the first backup signed when Pittsburgh signed him. So, I mean, your options, it's not like there were a lot. And when you get Jacoby Brissett for that little and he overperforms like that, it really is a good deal. It almost, like, if there was a higher level end backup, I almost wonder if the Browns would have gone that route if they somewhat would have known that Watson would have missed 11 games. Not because even if, like, I'm trying to think of just any example here that I can think of a high level backup. Like,
well, like maybe
let's say Gardner Minshew.
Well, yeah, Gardner Minshew might have been a good one. Maybe they trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, like we were talking about last week.
Part of me still thought they were going to do that, man. It just, for 11 games, I don't know. That it would have been interesting for sure, but yeah. I mean, Andrew Berry crushed it with signing Jacoby Brissett when you look back on it. So that brings us to the elephant in the room before we go to the draft picks. Deshaun Watson. The Browns gave up night and day to go get Deshaun Watson. He agreed to waive his no trade clause to come to the Cleveland Browns. I would say it's kind of like last week, Jack. It's still hard to really evaluate this truly because we haven't seen a full year with Deshaun Watson. So going back, knowing the Browns where they were, Russell Wilson was already in Denver. Aaron Rodgers ended up staying in Green Bay last year. You didn't really have a lot of elite options you could go get. Baker Mayfield wasn't coming back. The Browns go out and get Deshaun Watson. He missed 11 games. Here's the right way to phrase this. If you knew Deshaun Watson was missing 11 games, do you still give up everything it took to go get Deshaun Watson? Or would you have come up with another plan?
You're saying, rephrase that. You said if we knew about the...
If we knew he was being suspended for 11 games.
I think the Browns still do it. I think Andrew Berry still does it. I do, 100%. I think that was always Andrew Berry's guy. I think it was during that draft as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to assume that if you're Andrew Berry and you look at the situation, you know that obviously Baker isn't the answer. He's coming off of a torn labrum, and you're going to have to probably rebuild the entire wide receiver core. Obviously, he had already gotten Amari. You have way more problems than just your quarterback. And I think that when he's looking at the situation and says, okay, so if I can get Deshaun, like Deshaun's not a 1-year player. He's not a player that you're getting for 1 year to worry about, this year. This is a long-term 5-year plan, hopefully longer plan. So if you say I'm getting an elite quarterback in his prime and he's going to miss 11 games, but then I get him for the next 4 years at least, then I think that you have to take that risk. And I think that it's 100% justified because, again, all the other options that people were looking at as potential like franchise quarterback trades that were on the market, they were all gone, or they were all like they were just completely out of depth. We had no idea what the actual market for Aaron Rodgers was or anything like that. So I think that when you look at it and you say, would Andrew Berry take an 11-game suspension and then have Deshaun Watson for 4 years at least, or would you rather run it with Baker Mayfield in what is likely going to be a lost season anyways, and then have to restart and get a guy through the draft, or hope you get a guy through free agency, when you can instead you have a guy here who he can waive his no trade clause? And I think MC actually brings up a good point. Maybe they would have not given him the full guarantee. They might have tried to negotiate like a little bit less, and maybe
Jack.
I know.
He wouldn't have done it, bro.
I know.
Jack,
I know.
Does Deshaun come if it's not $250 million guaranteed money?
No, we knew what we had to do. Jimmy Haslam broke out the pocket. He broke out the checkbook, bro. He said, make it happen. You know exactly why. I do agree that he loved the meeting with the Browns. I do agree that he definitely probably was told by his agent and stuff, like, look at this roster around you too, man. Like, best roster you played with. But then they also said, oh, yeah, and by the way, all your money's fully guaranteed too. Oh, okay, sweet. I'm going to Cleveland. Like, no, bro. That was the deciding factor, because he already said no. Said no. That was a deciding factor. The Browns still would have given
I feel like they still were going to ask for that much. Like, because remember, it all had to go through the Texans first. The Texans weren't going to give him up for less than 3 first-round picks and a bunch of other stuff.
The teams that met with Deshaun, it was already reported, were willing to give the Texans what they wanted. Mm-hmm. They just had to work out how they wanted it structured. So,
what team was it that was mad that they didn't get a chance to like
Falcons
offer after us? The Falcons. Okay. Yeah.
So that's home for him.
Yeah.
So
they were gonna trade for him no matter what. Like, even if they knew, because the long-term implications or the long-term like plan is more important than the short-term pain of missing your quarterback for 11 games. Like, that's just a fact.
I think what really just is kind of crazy to think about is AJ Terrell mentioned the Falcons corner. He was one of the pieces that would have gone to Houston, which I find very interesting. So if you look back at it, even though the Browns gave up what they didn't give up Denzel.
I thought they were going to. I thought that they were going to give up Denzel.
They didn't give up Greg Newsome. Like, they were able to keep their team intact and just give up the money and the draft picks.
Yeah.
Which is pretty incredible to think about for sure. So now we move on to draft picks. Now, this is kind of difficult because I don't like to judge draft picks based off 1 year, but I think it's just interesting to go back over some of these picks to see what they did last year and really determine if we think this is someone that can be a contributor for us moving forward. So, all right, the first draft pick really surprised. I mean, it still surprised us all. Martin Emerson Jr. Going at pick 68. We didn't really, I'll admit, for someone who studies the draft, I didn't know much about him, because at the same time, I didn't think we were taking a corner. So Andrew Berry getting him where he did and Emerson performing like he did, I think you not only have a future starter, if the Browns at some point, and I do think when it becomes possible, they will try to move on from Denzel Ward, you have a replacement right there in MJ Emerson to pair with Greg Newsome. Looking back, what were your guys' thoughts on the Emerson pick? Looking back on it now,
I remember exactly where I was when the Browns traded back. I was driving to my brother's house, And I'm like, George Pickens is still there. George Pickens is still there. All these guys are still there. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Surely we're going to get someone that because obviously, you know, those were I wasn't looking at corner. I was completely not even, that was out of my mind because, you know, Greg had such a great year and we were like, we have our 1-2, we have AJ Green. Like we have all these guys that have proven to be like a fantastic trio of cornerbacks. So when they said they were trading back, I was just like, oh, you got to be kidding me, Andrew Berry. Really? You're going to miss out on all these guys? And then like right after the Steelers took George Pickens and I was mad. And then I'm like, okay, third round, it's fine. It's not a big deal. We're in the third round. Let's see what we got. And I remember I was standing there and they announced that Martin Emerson, cornerback. And I'm like, a corner? Why did we get another corner? I was like, just so confused. Like, why are we getting another corner? And I mean, obviously, Andrew Berry's way smarter than me because.
Are you sure about that?
After further consideration, he might just be a bit smarter than me, possibly.
I don't know. You knew about Joe Woods before he did, obviously.
That's true. Look, we all make mistakes. It's fine. But like he obviously saw something in Martin Emerson because that guy is. I'm surprised that Martin Emerson went to the third round because he played like a second round cornerback. I mean, he was fantastic as a rookie, and he's clearly the guy who is going to be the long-term answer at corner for this team. So great pick by Andrew Berry. Obviously, at the moment, I think a lot of people were like, "Why are we getting another corner?" A lot of people didn't even know who he was. They were like, I don't even know who this guy is. And he ended up being one of the best rookie acquisitions that we had that year. So fantastic job by Andrew Berry.
I don't know. I can't top that.
Dude, sometimes
when Jack,
it's a core memory. It's a core memory now. It's just like
sometimes
it's
when
something
Jack,
there.
When Jack talks before me, sometimes I'm just like, wow. Like it just takes the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, hey,
Tyler, we got two of you.
Dude, I'm trying to figure it all out, dude. I'm doing the best I can.
I love when we have two Tylers on stream.
Yeah, true. I miss the old stream when we had two Tylers.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway. The next draft pick is Alex Wright going at pick 78. 6'5", 270 pounds, defensive end. I still like this pick. I think he was put in a position where he was supposed to contribute last year, and it just wasn't. He was always raw. We knew that. And I think with Jim Schwartz, what we're going to see, and we've already started to hear about it, they're going to move him inside a lot more, which I think is what he's suited for, to be able to be that hybrid type player. So looking back, he graded out really poorly. He didn't really do anything. I mean, statistically, that really showed up on the box score. How do you guys still feel about the Alex Wright pick?
I still think there's, like you said, Tyler, like we can't really like grade these draft picks. And I feel like for like Alex Wright, I don't know if he's ever going to get that like opportunity truly for the Browns. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I mean, you got Ogbo, you went and got Darius Smith. You obviously have Myles Garrett. Like, yeah, he'll be a rotational piece. Maybe he'll even play a little bit inside as well throughout the season. But I don't know. Do you guys think we'll even get that fair shot to even like rotational piece? Yes, but
I think we need to see what Ogbo does this year, because if Ogbo really takes that next step forward, which I firmly believe he will, I'm a firm believer in him, and you move on from Zadarius Smith, which I mean, let's assume that's gonna happen. Alex Wright, even if he shows you something, anything, I think that he becomes your third DN, and you still have Isaiah McGuire.
Yeah, so you still have Isaiah McGuire too. So
I think I do think he'll get an opportunity. I really do, and I think he's going to be used a lot more inside than he is outside. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they're going to give him chances to shine. Andrew Berry doesn't like giving up on draft picks, so he's going to try to find a spot for Alex Wright, and I know that obviously Jacob Roach is going to do anything he can to make sure that Alex Wright stays on this team and finds a spot. So, I mean, I think that obviously we didn't have that many expectations for Alex Wright. Like we were hoping that he could come in and really, fulfill his role as a starter. The only issue is that obviously then Jadeveon got signed, and it was like, well, what kind of rotation he's going to be in? And I think they gave him a lot of reps because obviously the situation with Jadeveon, and it just never really worked out. He still was a very raw talent that needed to really be refined. I think that was one of the main things that I think a lot of people said was that he has some of the tools, but he just doesn't have the experience with like high level NFL level talent yet. So he just needed to kind of grow into that sort of role. So I think that obviously now a year in the system, hopefully with Jim Schwartz, he has a better guy who is who's helping him develop. So that's really the main thing is that I think he just needs time to develop. I think that Andrew Berry is going to give him as much time as he needs, as long as like he's not completely fallen off. And I think that he'll find a role. I think they'll find a place for him to succeed. And I think obviously once Darius Smith isn't, the main guy on the other side from Miles, that Alex Wright will get a better shot at that. But otherwise, I think that they're going to find a way to get him involved.
Yeah, I would agree with this, MC Lawrence. Many guys need 2 or 3 years to develop. That's true. And when you're drafting some of these guys, especially in the third round, you're not needing them to be starters. You honestly just want them to be good rotational players. Yeah. You can get that out of day 3 pick, late day 2, early day 3 picks, then you've done very well. Most NFL teams would kill to be able to have multiple guys that they draft later on that contribute. That brings us to another guy that many fans would say is on the roster bubble right now. I am not one of those people, but there are many that say that, and that is wide receiver David Bell, who the Browns took at pick 99. Coming off a fantastic year at Purdue. He was an All-American in 2021. He battled a lot of injury last year. Didn't really contribute much at all. Looking back, how do you guys feel about David Bell?
I still really like David Bell as a player, and I think that he could have a role on the team. It's just becoming harder and harder to really identify where it is, because I remember when we drafted him, we really thought like, oh, this guy's going to be a really big key in the cog in the offense. Like we thought this guy's going to be in the slot. He's going to be out, right alongside Amari Cooper, really doing a lot of work because his route running was really good. He has good hands. And like those are the main things that we were looking at. Like we just need a guy who we can like
Jarvis Landry.
Draw a play up for. Yeah, like Jarvis Landry. We need a guy who we can draw a play up for, and we know he's going to be there, and we know he's going to catch the ball. And I think the issue was that Jacoby just got like, obviously if you're a guy like Jacoby and you're going to go for the most talented guys. And Amari just became his safety blanket, and David Njoku just is a huge body that they really got involved in a lot of plays. And even Donovan Peoples-Jones was just like, somebody who he felt a lot of confidence in. And David Bell just really never found a spot or found any rhythm with Jacoby, to the point where he essentially got phased out of the offense at some point. So it's not even really that I don't think he got a fair shake, as much as it is just like, I don't think that the offense could sustain him, because they already kind of had an offense that was based on David Njoku, Amari Cooper, and Donovan Peoples-Jones and Nick Chubb. And they just could not support another one because Jacoby just had already essentially established chemistry with those 3 receivers and didn't have any real I guess I don't want to say that he wasn't talented enough to really expand the playbook to that many receivers, but I think they wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So it just kind of was an issue with the way that the year turned out.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like Jacoby is that player, like that quarterback. Like he trusts who he trusts at wide receiver. So like Don Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper, like Jack said. And then by the time Watson came back, it's like, okay, now Watson kind of has to get into a rhythm. He obviously struggled. So David Bell, I mean, average at best season, but did what he did. He did what he could with the targets he got. Now you go into this season, obviously you draft, Cedric. You obviously go get Elijah Moore. DPJ he's shown us he's going to get better every single season. So he'll have another great season. Already has good chemistry with Watson too. Amari Cooper. It's just like what is the role for him? And I think it's just kind of like, if there is anything, it's like that security blanket kind of role, So that's how I look at it. I mean, he was never going to be drafted to be this athlete. He's never going to be an athlete like that as a wide receiver, but he can get open and he can catch the ball. So
you guys said it all. I mean,
we do.
For real. I mean, there's really nothing else to add. I mean, he's just going to continue, I think, just to fall behind with the guys we got there. I think maybe when Goodwin moves on, the Browns, maybe David Bell steps up a little bit. I mean, David Bell will make the roster. Just don't know how much he's going to play. So I think that's pretty fair. The next guy at 108, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, Mr. Perrion Winfrey. I'm going to be completely honest here. I get it. I'm not I don't like to judge draft picks after a year. Like I told you guys, I think that's wrong. I have yet to see any reason on why drafting Perrion Winfrey has remotely been a good idea. I get you need a defensive tackle. This dude is such a character problem that I wouldn't have done it. It's just a mess. And he doesn't seem to buy in as a pro. I mean, he was inactive because he couldn't show up on time. Dude, I'm sorry. I'm honestly done with Perrion Winfrey. I think he'll make the roster. I do, but he's got to really show me and try and convince me, because I think I'm out on Perrion Winfrey. I would have gone somewhere else, and personally on that pick, not a fan. So,
well, I know why they did it.
I'm just going to say no comment on that, on this one.
That's fine.
Yeah, I know why they did it. And I think that, I remember day one when we first got him, everyone was hyped because, we all thought that he could be a real big game changer at the position. We needed defensive tackle help. And at the same time, we draft him and, he comes out and he's barking and he's looking like a guy who really loves and is buying into being a Brown. And you love to see that. The only issue is that he can't get on the field, and sometimes he is not even at the stadium because he's suspended from team activities for conduct detrimental to the team. And when he is on the field, he's not doing anything. So it's really a bad dichotomy when you talk a lot and then you do nothing. So I'm not giving up on him. Obviously, I think that, he's already on a very short leash because he's already been suspended twice. So you obviously, if you're a rookie and you're a 5th round pick and you've been suspended twice, if you get suspended again, they're probably just you're way more trouble than it's worth. But I think that they still see talent in him. I think they're going to let him ride, and he's going to make the team this year. And unless something bad happens in camp, and unless, he continues to show really bad behavioral issues, I think that they're going to try to get him into a role on the team. But I think that the first sign that something bad happens, if he has another outburst or doesn't show up to or is late to a meeting or something, I think that they're just going to cut ties and say we're done. It's not worth our time.
That's fair, Jack. You're definitely taking a different outlet. I just, in my mind, I already think he's more trouble than what he's worth. He didn't really show me anything last year that made me think that this guy is gonna be a solid player for us. I never really saw it whatsoever, but we knew he was terrible against the run. That's what everywhere he's been in college, he was awful against the run. And now you bring in Dalvin Tomlinson, Siaki Ika is making the roster, obviously. They seem to still somewhat like Jordan Elliott. You brought in Maurice Hurst, who apparently has looked really good. If he was cut, it wouldn't bother me.
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't bother me either. I'm not super invested, but I know that I don't think that Perrion's going to be cut unless either one of these other guys shows up and just completely overshadows him, or he has a character issue incident again during camp. Because I just don't think that Andrew Berry's going to want to get rid of him before his second year, even though, again, the character issues there, but maybe it's like, okay, we bring in a more structure with Jim Schwartz. We bring in a new leader. We actually establish, like, we obviously they did a lot in trying to essentially establish his boundaries and say, hey, you have to come to meetings. You can't be out doing stuff and getting in trouble. Like, obviously some guys just don't get it when they come into the NFL, that like the expectations are insanely different to college and the rules are different. And, you know, I'm just under the impression that Andrew Berry is going to give him at least like a little bit of leeway on just the way he acted. But obviously now it's like, okay, we've told you once, we've told you twice. Now, if something bad happens, it's over. And like, you have no room for error. You need to show out. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just say, okay, if you don't show us in camp that you're worth keeping on the team, that you've shown progression, either as a player or as a person, then we're just going to cut bait. Because I think that, you know, at some point they have to say, you haven't shown us enough, or you've shown us too much of who you are for us to really feel like we can trust you on the team.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about Perrion Winfrey all day. I feel like I really feel like we could, just given the circumstances. But we'll move on. Next up, the Browns took in the 4th round at pick 124, kicker Cade York out of LSU. I'll say for this one, for me, it still makes sense they took him. And you know what? A rough rookie year. Played really well on the road. At home is always a challenge, for sure. I still think Cade York is the future kicker for the Browns. I really do. And what rookie has ever kicked well in Cleveland? Ever. So I get the pick, and I'm still okay with it now.
Phil Dawson.
Yeah,
True.
I mean,
I don't even remember Phil Dawson's rookie season, so I just know.
well,
we're still
because
trying
he
to
wasn't
replace
with the Browns.
Oh, okay. See,
he
there you go.
He was with the Patriots.
So I'm
There you
gonna
go.
put in.
I was too young.
I'm gonna put the next 3 guys together, and the reason I'm gonna do this is basically none of them really contributed as rookies. So I feel like if you combine those 3, it kind of actually the last 4. I'll just say that, because really the last 4 didn't contribute much. So we're gonna go with Jerome Ford. We're gonna go with Michael Woods, Isaiah Thomas, and Dawson Deaton. I mean, looking back, I think Michael Woods unfortunately suffered an injury this offseason. I honestly think he still would have had a difficult time making the roster. Jerome Ford, we'll see. I can't say anything on Ford because I haven't seen him enough. So I can't say anything on Jerome Ford. Dawson Deaton, probably not going to make the team, especially coming off an ACL injury. And Isaiah Thomas has a tough road to make the team. So looking back on those picks, guys, how do you guys feel? I mean, again, not really much to say because we haven't seen a lot of these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Jerome looked really good in that preseason game. He whipped off. Well, I mean, because that's really all we have. I mean,
I know. I'm just saying,
honest,
like, I mean, that's
I'm not
true.
gonna lie.
That's
I'm
true.
not gonna lie. I was kind of high on Jerome Ford coming out because I'm like, okay, he might not get a lot of play this year. But I think we all were under the impression that Dearness Johnson was gone, that he was probably going to get, that somebody was going to pick him up for like, it was like $3 million or something for his restricted contract at the Browns, because like the Browns were basically just saying, hey, we'll let you go look for teams, but we still want you back. And then you know, you have Kareem, you have Nick, so he was always going to be just kind of like the odd man out in that rotation. And then you have him come in during the preseason. You know, he shows that he's a decent runner. I heard some things about him not having good hands and having fumble issues. And so, I mean, I was like, hey, future, he probably becomes the backup or the third string running back. You know, he's a rotation guy. No issue with him as a player. And, you know, he had a decent game in the preseason. That's about all we saw of him the whole year. And that was it. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, like Isaiah Thomas, the only way I even knew that guy existed was because of him getting like tweeted at during the Jordan documentary, and that was pretty funny. But I mean, other than that, these other guys just haven't done anything, and I just don't think that
Yeah.
there's really anything about them that would make you think that there's any sort of reason to believe that they're on the team this year. Because again, they were essentially just late round picks that you don't really expect a lot of them to pan out. So it's just kind of the cycle.
Jack once again, just absolutely
Well,
just
That's
I
just
mean,
what it is. That's just what
yeah.
it is.
Jack with the mic drop and he just
That's-
walks out.
That's just what it is.
only Jack can talk about dudes that have never seen the field. And
Dude, I listen, dude. I was hyped when Jerome Ford he ran he was like a 60-yard touchdown or something, man. He looked really good.
Bro,
He
I've
looked
learned
like
not to get excited about preseason performances, though.
I know you can't
it
get
breaks my
excited
heart
over
every time.
preseason performances. I know you can't. But look,
But you did.
he didn't play at all during the season, so I had to get hyped up about something. Okay, the only time we really saw him was that.
Oh man! So guys, as we're wrapping things up here, we kind of went back. We looked at the 2022 offseason. The question becomes: did Andrew Berry do enough? Did he do enough to really make this team a playoff contender in 2022?
Yeah, because you got your franchise quarterback, you think, right?
Well, I think he's saying during that season
To make the playoffs last year, did they do enough?
I still think, given how Jacoby played during his time as the starting quarterback of the Browns, I still think the Browns should have at least made wild card last year. I think we,
Look.
yeah. I think our defense. I think Mr. Woods. I think
Mr.
just how
Woods.
bad.
Mr.
I just think
Woods.
how bad that unit was, like as a group, as a cohesive unit, right there, dude. I think they are the reason. 100%. I do think they are the reason we lost majority of those games, and I think they're the reason why we missed just even sniffing wild card last year.
I mean, dude, we lost to the Falcons where they were
that
playing,
Jets game alone,
they
dude,
were
should have got him
playing-
fired, bro.
They were playing an offense from the 1950s. They completed like 8 passes. And they were running. They ran like 15 times in a row, and you knew they were running, and you kept letting them run. He said, put 4 in the box. I don't even care. Just keep running. Just keep rushing with 4. Don't even put any more guys on the line. They're going to run the ball. We don't know that. This could be the one
Jack.
time they throw.
Jack, you
this
don't need
quarter.
any PTSD. You
Dude,
don't need to get PTSD.
I don't get it.
Jack, we're
He's
good.
gone. He's
We're
gone.
good, bro.
He's gone.
I'll just say this.
Not your fault, Jack. It's not your fault.
I still don't think Andrew Berry did enough because he did not address defensive tackle. And ultimately that was the downfall. We
But
couldn't
I
stop
think-
a single soul running the ball.
And then, I mean, other than, yeah, no, I'm lying. He definitely addressed defense tackle this year. But until this year, Andrew Berry has never addressed defense tackle.
Also a fact.
Never. It was never a
100%
position
fact.
he ever wanted to spend money on while he was GM. And so, I mean, people really weren't shocked by it. They really weren't last offseason.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, this is a perfect time to transition. Now that you've had your rant about Joe Woods and
Mr. Woods.
about how fantastic
I
that
think he's
was,
a substitute teacher now.
I think now is
Is
a
he?
perfect time for
That'd be
you
funny.
to tell us why you love Homage and why people should go buy Homage athletic apparel.
Yeah. What shirt you wearing, Jack?
I'm wearing the Ohio shirt. It's kind of.
Oh, damn it. You
yeah.
proved me wrong.
Dude, what are you-
He got you
What are
there,
you talking
bro.
about, dude? Come
He got
on,
you.
man. What? You think I'm slacking? Really, man? Just because it's not a Wednesday?
Damn,
Man, you
got
thought you
me.
had me, man. That's kind of sad. That's kind of
Wow.
sad, man. You
Damn.
thought I'd be slacking? Come on. Nah, man. Look, again, I every time I go on there, there's new stuff. There's new cool stuff because they got the Force stuff. They got because I don't know if you guys have ever watched like any of these indoor soccer or these old soccer teams for Cleveland. I mean, the fact that they even have these, the fact that they have, what they need to do is they need to get Akron Arrows stuff on there because the Akron Arrows, I heard that they might actually go back to being called the Akron Arrows instead of the Akron Rubber Duckies. I would love that because the Arrows were cool.
Rubber
But-
duckies.
No, but like seriously, because the stuff Homage, I know that the second that if they do go back to the Arrows, Homage is going to have them. It's going to be a high quality shirt. It's going to be a cool logo, probably one of their old school ones from the 90s, because they have all this cool stuff. They have nostalgia. They have retro. They have stuff from, a couple years ago. They have current stuff, and it's all on hoodies, t-shirts, long sleeves, anything you would want, and it's all super comfortable. I mean, Zach, you're wearing one right now. You know how soft these things are. They're super soft, super breathable. And I mean, you have a hoodie on right now, or not a hoodie, you have a sweatshirt, Tyler. So I mean, like, you know how comfortable those things are too. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they have basically any team you would want, even teams that, again, people don't know about the Force or about the Crunch, and they have them on there. So like the fact that they have them on there, they have cool logos, they have even stuff that's not sports related. So they have, just anything that you would want, pop culture, just anything Cleveland related that you would want to get it on there. They have it in basically every size, every color, every design that you would want. So just go on Homage and you'll find stuff. Just type in stuff that you remember from your childhood. They probably have a shirt for it. So I mean, I'm going to get one of their Cleveland Crunch shirts because I love the Cleveland Crunch. So get on there, just look around, just find stuff. You're going to find stuff, and it's all good deals, good prices, and good quality. So you just got to check out Homage.
And if you like the new dog logo, I just posted a link for it. So
that's true. They do have the new dog logo stuff.
And I won't lie, I've seen,
might be the only thing I ever buy with that logo on it.
Well, I've seen it on like other people's merch and stuff, and I'm like, it doesn't really look great. But for some reason, on that brown Homage shirt, it does look pretty nice. I actually might have to get it. It looks pretty nice.
The hats with that logo on it are pretty hideous, and it's really unfortunate because
I don't like the gray. I don't like the gray background with it.
I'll say it. I unfortunately have to buy one because I have pretty much like every Browns combination hat imaginable, so I have to add to that collection. So I'll have to figure something out.
I do like the idea of the dog logo. I like what they put in there. I like all that stuff. But now that I see it on merch and stuff, and I'm like,
I'm not gonna lie. I think that the thing is that's just so big. It's just kind of like a.
That's
boxy.
What she said.
It's kind of boxy. He froze. Oh no, he's back.
Oh man. So Jack, anyways, you are the professional ad reader for Homage 100%.
I try. I love Homage.
Hopefully they don't steal you from us. But anyway, guys,
go ahead, dude. I mean,
like
money.
it says right down here.
Go ahead.
Drop a like.
Make money. Make money.
I'll make money.
Drop a like on tonight's video. Subscribe for brand new Network 216. Be sure to check out the Discord again. You can do that for free. Just to see what we have to offer. First off, and if you like that content, be sure that then you go and become a member of the Discord. Again, that's only $10 a month, and we do have a deal for anyone who wants to be an annual subscriber for you guys to take advantage of. The link is in the description for that, so be sure to take advantage of that. We can't wait to talk to you guys all again next week, and go Browns, baby.
Go Browns. Like, comment, sub to the channel. I'm beating Jack. This is usually Jack's thing.
Go to Homage. Go to Homage.
Subscribe to the Discord. Pay money. $10 a month. You'll win money.